Shabbat Tov, everyone. I want to start this week. We're going to probably have to do a much quicker review of this week's wonders. We're going to have a power outage. That's what I was told soon. So fun for us. If we start learning Torah, what is the first pasuk? In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. So what's first? First he created heaven and then earth. But then right afterwards, a couple of prakim later, we have a second pasuk. And what does the pasuk say? It says, Beyom asot Hashem Elokim eretz v'shamayim. That God, at the day that he did, the land and then the sky. So what's first? So first is the land. And that is the famous argument between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. What was created first? Who's first? The land or the heaven? So obviously there's a lot to learn from this argument. It's not just a history lesson. It's something very deep that is that we take with us every day, that we use every day, every time we want to do something in life. We have to think about these two things. So before we dive in and explain, let's understand the two sides. Who are the two sides? So if we read this week's Noam Elimelech, Rabbi Elimelech from Lezhensk says that there are two types of tzaddikim. One side is the side that come from ahava, that they have a lot of love in them. And the other side comes from yirah, lots of fear and awe. And the ahava side is always the right side. And the fear side, the awe side, is always having awe of Hashem, being wow, blown away, is always the left side, is always the... So if we have two sides, the right and the left, who's right and who's left? So Beit Hillel has always been on the right side, always been Rav Chesed. The right side always has the Chesed side, the love and kindness. And Beit Shammai are very strict. They're on the left side. Now, if we want to look at these two things, the heaven and the earth, and we want to look at a man and a woman or a bride and groom, who's the man? The sky. The guy's always up there. And who's connected to the earth? That's the woman's side. So if we look at the two sides, Beit Hillel have the heaven side, the side that comes from above, and Beit Shammai is the earth. Now it gets complicated, because if we say that heaven is the spiritual side and earth is the physical side, what are their opinions? So again, we have an argument. The argument is, what was created first, the heaven or the earth? Who's first? And Beit Hillel, which represent, again, the right side, the man side, the love and kindness side, they say the opposite, that the earth is first. That you guys, the Beit Shammai, that the women are first. And Beit Shammai, which represent always the left side, the side that's more on the earth, that what do they say? They say the opposite, that the heaven was first. So every side says that the other side is first. Now, why is this beautiful? Why is this important? Where do we see this? There are many stories of two rabbis that wanted to walk into a place and they start arguing. Who's first? So one rabbi says, you should be first because you're older. The other rabbi says, yes, I'm older, but you went and studied by these and these scholars, so you're more worthy. And they always argue who should be first. Okay, so everyone can say hello to Israel. Come say hello to everyone. Okay, he's upset. Do you want to come and say hello, or do you want to go? I have to continue. You can come or you can go. Come. Okay, so we have two sides. And when these two rabbis argue, you can't bother. בוא תגיד שם.
די.
כולם מסתכלים עליך.
רגע.
אתה מפריע, כן, כולם שומעים אותך.
די.
יש פה רמקול, אתה רואה? ואז כולם שומעים. ובוא תגיד להם לפחות שלום, שיראו מי מפריע להם. One second, my son here is having a hard time. One second. נו, אתה רוצה להגיד להם שלום?
די.
או שאתה בוא להגיד שלום או שתהיה בשקט, הם לא יכולים שאתה מפריע להם בשיעור. Okay, so he's willing to let us continue. So we have two sides, and each side respects and wants the other side to be first. Now, the interesting thing is in this midrash of who was created first, there's a third opinion. And the third opinion is that they were created together. That's, we always say that when you have going into a chuppah, you have getting married, or a man and a woman, there's a third party, and that is God. God is on top and creates the unity and makes it together. So on his side, from God's side, it's all together. No, you can't touch that. Put it back. Put it back. I understand, but you can't touch it. You can sit. Say hello. Say hello. You want to say hello? So you can either sit or you can go. All right. He's helping us focus. So when you have two parties that are coming together in love, there's the third party, which is God, that creates them together. Now, this creation has this unity has something where every person takes the other side. Let's look at a simple marriage. What does a guy do? A Jewish male do before he gets married? He goes and studies. What does he study? Mainly Torah. Sometimes you can study a little bit of other things, but in the Jewish world, going out and studying business and studying science and everything else, the bulk of it is done after marriage. Before marriage, a boy is only spiritual. He learns a lot about Torah and about midot and all of these things that are supposed to create the spiritual world. So that's no, I said you can't touch it. What did I say? I'm going to turn it on for you, but you can't touch it. What did you do? All right. So what does a woman do before? What does a girl do before she gets married? Mostly, again, many times it's different, but mostly what she does is she learns how to create a house. Now, in the last 100 years, there's a lot more Torah being taught to the women, based on the third revolution, which we discussed many times. But conceptually, what a woman learns from her mother is how to create a house. Now, what happens when they get married? When they get married, they need to switch sides. And how do we see that? We see in the chuppah. In the chuppah, what happens? The husband goes and commits to the physical side of the woman. He says, I will support, I will bring money, I will bring food, I will protect, etc., etc. Look at the ketubah. Very demanding. So we see a switch from being completely spiritual, where everyone wants to protect the boy so he should learn, to being completely responsible for the physical world. And the woman's side, from being in the physical world, we learn that she's now responsible for the spirituality of the house. We know that the emunah of the women is what got us out of Egypt. And in general, the main side of chinuch, and we have this many times by sages, they explain this, that the main chinuch comes from the woman being at home. Meaning the kids yes, they learn from the father, but at the end of the day, they see the mother at home. So, and not only that, the women are also responsible for the men to go and study, meaning, and this is something very important that I think in today's age is not specified as much. A woman is very much responsible for the spirituality of the man. If a woman pushes her husband to be spiritual, to learn Torah, to connect, to have a rabbi, etc., all the spiritual side, then he will thrive. If a woman does not respect that or does not give it any space, leaves it to the man to figure out his Torah stuff, then it's not going to work. And we see it in this argument, in this machloket between the two sides. Beit Hillel, which represent the man's side, what do they say? The land is first. Land is the first thing to be created. And Beit Shammai, what do they say? They say, no, the heaven was first. And it's very important that each side takes their right side, which again switches many times, but that's what they're responsible for. Meaning, if a man is supposed to bring food home, the woman is supposed to make sure that there's spirituality home. Meaning, if a man comes home and says, what do you guys need? Do you need money? Do you need food? Do you need help? What do you need? The woman should say, no. What did you learn today? That would create a beautiful home that Hashem could say, no, it's all good. It's all together. Now, what are the other machlokot? What are the other arguments that Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel have? So there's a famous argument about divorce. Very interesting. That Beit Shammai, what do they say? They say that a man should not get divorced unless he finds some inappropriate things. So if something is not right, then there's no option. He must get divorced. Beit Hillel, what do they say? No, even if she spoiled his food, he could divorce. Very interesting. And Rabbi Akiva is the most interesting opinion. He said even if he found a more beautiful woman, he found on the street a more beautiful woman, he can divorce his wife and leave the marriage. Very, very weird. Very weird argument. What do they mean? Now we all know that the last thing that Jews do is get divorced. The marriage is such an important thing that we say that the altar cries every time there's a divorce. So what is their opinion? How do we put their opinion in perspectives? So again, if we look at Beit Shammai is the earth side. What do they say? They say the most important thing is spirituality. If spiritually everything is good, meaning there's no bad things going on spiritually, then fine, then the relationship should continue. What do Beit Hillel say? Beit Hillel says, no, the physical is important. The sages say that when they said that she spoils his food, it means on purpose, meaning she's ruining the house. That's what it represents. Spoiling the food represents someone that's trying to make the physical level bad. And what Beit Hillel said, no, if the physical doesn't work, then the relationship doesn't work. They care about the physical side. Now, who's right? Who do we go by? In general, we go by Beit Hillel. Meaning, when we look in general on in the bigger picture, wait, there's a question. Let's see what it is. Okay, so we'll get to the Mashiach time, but the basic we always go by Beit Hillel. Why is that? Because we say that most important is the physical level. Just like the Baal Shem Tov said that the first thing you should take care of is the physical needs of a Jew, and after that you should worry about the spiritual side. Same thing. We say that the basics is the physical. The world has to work. After that, after someone comes, if he's hungry, first give him food. Don't start lecturing him. That in general, we always go with the physical side. Obviously, when we learn it this way, it's very easy to understand why La'atid lavo, in the world to come, and when the world will be perfect, then the spiritual will be first. 1 second. אני באמצע שיעור.
די, אבל אני לא...
אני מבין, אבל אני באמצע שיעור.
אבל אני מנסה לגמור.
אני אגמור עוד הרבה זמן, מה אתה רוצה?
היה לי פלפל, ואז אמא אמרה לי שאני יכול לראות אותו, ואז לא אוהב. הוא רטף לי את הפלפל, והיה ואני אומר, ואמא אמרה, שאני ארד אליך, ומה לעשות?
בסדר, עכשיו תקשיב, אני רוצה שתשטוף עליהם בפנים, אז אתה יכול לאכול אפרסק וללכת לישון.
מה? לא אמרזק.
מה אתה רוצה?
אמרזק ומלבבון.
לא, רוצה רוצה.
לא, אני רוצה... אז פלפל.
לא, אפרסק אומר.
אבל אני פלפל בהתחלה.
נכון, אבל נראה לי עדיף לך לאכול אפרסק ומלבבון.
לא.
טוב, אז תשטוף ידיים בפנים, תחליף חולצה. תאכל פלפל אחד ותלך לישון. לילה טוב.
אבל לא אגיד לי אפשר לרבל, אם תגידי לא אפשר לי ואז...
בסדר.
תשלח להרגעה שלי קיים.
ביי.
תשלח להרגעה.
All right. We're back. Sorry about that. So again, we have two sides. We have an argument. We have a machloket. There's Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. And we always go by Beit Hillel because we care first about the physical needs of a Jew and then the spiritual needs. Now, why is that? Now, very interestingly, that it says that Beit Hillel always put Beit Shammai before them. They always put Beit Shammai first. And even in these arguments, we always get the opinion of Beit Shammai. We always get them first. So on the one hand, we say that the halacha is like Beit Hillel. On the other hand, Beit Hillel is always respecting Beit Shammai. Now again, what does Beit Shammai hold? Beit Shammai hold that this world is meaningless without spirituality, without God. And if the world is the more restrictions you put on this world, the more it becomes spiritual. The more spiritual, the better it is. So that's כן, אני מבקש לא להפריע.
אבא, אמא לא הסכימה לו, הוא לקח ברשות.
אתה לא יכול
למה שהוא אמרה לו לא?
אתה לא יכול להתערב. Sorry about that. This week we have lots of kids coming. Okay, so now what is their argument with regards to Shabbat? If very famous argument, some people may remember that Beit Shammai say that every time you should prepare something in advance for Shabbat. So, for example, on Sunday you found a very nice piece of meat, you put it in the fridge for Shabbat. Why? Because we always care about Shabbat. Again, they care about the spirituality. Spirituality is Shabbat. So you find something good, you wait for Shabbat. Then what happens if on Monday you found something better? Then you take the one that you put away for Shabbat and you put the one that you found on Monday. So that's Beit Shammai. Beit Shammai hold that every time you should, when you see the best piece, that you see the best thing, you find a nice drink, a nice wine, you find a nice tablecloth or anything nice you find, you put it for Shabbat. Beit Hillel said, no, Baruch Hashem Yom Yom. Every day is its own day. What will happen on Shabbat? Before Shabbat, on Friday, God will help us. In the meantime, you have to take care of today. A Jew is hungry, he wants to eat, there's a good piece of meat, you give him the meat. You let him eat. Now what happens at the end? At the end, the Beit Shammai end up, even though they say only spirituality, they end up being like Rabbi Akiva, that every time they find something nicer, they leave the relationship with the piece of meat and they bring it up to the next nicer piece. The same thing about the divorce that we spoke before. That at the end of the day, we look at the house. This is not. Most people don't hold of this machloket for the physical divorce. They look at it as the relationship. Beit Shammai says a relationship is a good relationship if no one is doing any sins, any problems. If spiritually it's a good relationship, then we're good with it. Then that's it. Then everything's good. Beit Hillel says no. We want the relationship to be also physical. Not only is it spiritually good, it needs to be also physically good. It has to be that people take care of each other. You don't spoil the other person's food because you're upset at him, because you want him to leave. You take care of each other, even physically. So that's Beit Hillel. And what does Rabbi Akiva say? Rabbi Akiva wants the relationship to be at a much, much higher level. Rabbi Akiva wants the relationship to be that there's nothing in the world more beautiful than the marriage that we have. The relationship that we have is the best in the world. That is the godly way of looking at things. That this is the best. There's nothing better. And that's the type of relationship that he wants to see. So looking at the argument in this light makes it a lot easier to understand. Now, if we want to look at the king, very interesting that this week the whole world is looking at the situation in Great Britain where the Queen passed away. There's no physical meaning to the Queen, meaning she doesn't really make any decisions. They just the people made a royal family, that the family is supposed to have fun and enjoy themselves and be happy. And then that creates, that is something very special. And when the Queen passed away, it became a worldly event. They closed everything down for a couple of days, and now they're having a huge funeral. Something very, very big is happening. Now, what is so special about a king? What does a king do? What if someone looks at Jews, he says, well, every Jew is connected to Hashem, right? We're all part of Hashem. So we don't need a king. We don't need a rabbi. We don't need a rabbi. We don't need anything special. We're connected. We can have democracy. We can just choose things together, but we're all good. If people remember, this argument was brought on by Korach. What do we need Moses for? What do we need Moshe Rabbeinu? What are you helping? What is the point of a king? We can connect to Hashem. So Rav Ginsburg had a shiur this Shabbat where he explained that a king takes everything that Hashem tells us, or takes everything that the nation should have, and brings it into to be an inner, to be understood internally, to internalize the message. Meaning, we want to see. Now, this was very hard to understand. I tried to understand that a little bit. I'm sure probably Rabbi Ginsburg will elaborate on this. But when we look at a king, we want to see something complete. We want to see someone really, really happy. How do we see that? We see the halacha of a Mored B'Malchut, a rebel, someone that rebels against the king. What does the halacha say? That the king could kill him. If someone rebelled, the king could go ahead and kill him. Now, there's something very special about this. Normally, most halacha, in order to kill someone, you have to have 2 witnesses, and you have to have a trial, and it has to be something very, very special. In this case, a king could just kill. He doesn't need to go through the whole loop. There's something very, very, very important to us about not having rebels. Why is that? Because again, we want the king to be happy. We need the king, we need everything to be perfect for the king. Maybe we could say that that's why it's so hard for us to bring back the kingdom, because to see something like that happen right now, the trust between a nation and a king is not something the Jewish people are ready for. Bezrat Hashem, we hope that speedily we will be, but until we're ready for it, we're not ready for it. And when we're not ready for it, when we look at a king as something technical, what does that remind us? That reminds us of the first time the nation asked for a king. When Bnei Israel, they had a commandment, Som tasim alecha melech, you should put a king on you. So the nation came to the prophet Shmuel and said to him, we want a king. And Shmuel was very upset, and Hashem was very upset. What happened? What's so upsetting? The nation, Am Yisrael, requested a king. And the answer was that they wanted a king to be just like everyone else. They wanted a king to have a system. And doing that is rebelling against Hashem. The reason we want a king, in a sense, it's the same thing as a marriage. When we look at a marriage as something technical, it ruins the whole marriage. There's no point. If it's two technical things people need just to work together, to survive together, then where is it like that in politics? We look at politicians as a technical thing. We need someone to run we have a big operation. We need roads, we need security, we need different things. So we decide on a couple people, politicians, to be running the show. We don't really necessarily respect them. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But it's part of the game. It's a technical game. There's no need for anyone to love a politician. There's no point in that. A politician is like an employee to an extent. It's like a gabbai. No one wants you to go around and love the gabbai of the shul and say that he's such a special guy. There's no need for that. It's a technical position. Now, we love every Jew, but at the end of the day, it's a technical position. A king is not technical. A king is supposed to be a way for us to connect to Hashem internally. Now, where do we see that? We see that by a rabbi. When we look at the Lubavitch Rebbe or any other Rebbe from the Baal Shem Tov, we can see a person that internalizes the message of Hashem, that looks at the situation as a whole, this world as a whole, and internalizes it. He really feels it. You know, people look at a rabbi and see him crying, see him praying, see him doing anything. It's so special. What's so special? The special part is we say that's how it's supposed to be. That's internalized. That's how we want to see it. And because of that, it is so special and such a great thing for us to have a real king. Now, again, in an example, many times you explain to a kid, you can explain an example of millions of dollars, you can explain it on $2. The same lahavdil, the same way of looking at it, we can see the queen that passed away right now. That people, she's not going to do anything. No one gains anything by going over there. But there's a lot of emotions going on, a lot of respect. Why is that? Because people want to see someone perfect. They want to see someone that is the crown. They want to see someone special. And for that, they made this royal family. Obviously, it's a real bad example, but it's an example. Nevertheless, we can learn something from it. And that's what we look for. We look for a king that everyone will look to say, he's perfect. He's just perfect. There's real love between the nation and the king. Say, we're not perfect. We all have faults, but he is perfect. He's beautiful. That's the beauty of a king. And that's what we're looking for. Melech HaMashiach, the king who will also be the Mashiach, is someone perfect. And when he's perfect, what he does to us is he says, okay, Hashem is perfect, and life is perfect, and the world is perfect. And that allows us to internalize the message. That when we listen to spirituality, when we listen to the message from Hashem, we don't internalize it. We only internalize it when we see it on a rabbi. Okay, like I said, we're going to have to cut it a little bit short. I will take a few minutes, some question, and then I'm going to prepare for the power outage. Yeah, crazy evening. Okay, any questions, thoughts? Okay, if not, we should we should all be have this good to see, to watch a real king, and obviously we can see that on the Rabbi, and we should all respect the fellow Jew. Obviously, in a relationship is much more in a marriage or other relationships, but every Jew is connected, and that relationship means that we want to respect them, just like Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai respected each other. That's like heaven and earth, spirituality and physically. Now, right now, we say halakha is the physical is first, but Latid level spiritual will be first, and the spiritual place is very much necessary, just like the physical place. Okay, so if there's no other questions, Shavua Tov, everyone.